Okay, so we've got quite a neat project today. Today we've got a job for a customer of ours. This is their great grandfather, and so they were an Anzac at Gallipoli. So this is a New Zealand soldier, and his name is Thomas Perry. We're going to restore this photo, we're going to colorise it, and we're going to show you the process. So I've scanned this photo at 1200 dpi. Usually we just scan 600, but we're increasing the size of this photo, so we've increased the resolution of the scan. And it's quite important when you do your scanning to don't blow out your highlights and your lowlights. So you can't just use auto on your scanner, you need to drag your levels left and right and make sure that you lose no highlights and no lowlights. So we've opened up the file, and we're just going to get a few things ordered in Photoshop. So we run our Photoshop in photography color space, and if you have any issues finding anything, go in and reset your photography. The same goes for your tools. We leave everything default. If you have an issue with a tool, go in here, go to your settings and reset all tools. And if you just leave everything default, that just keeps things gone, because sometimes you'll touch a button and everything disappears, right? Like the caps lock, it happens. Okay, so there's one change we make to photography is the AI generative fill bar. I like to put it up here and lock that, pin that bar position, because otherwise you'll be jumps around all over your edits, and you've got to sort of edit upwards, whereas we tend to edit left to right, top to bottom in New Zealand. Okay, and then another thing which is a little bit different from stock is when you first open up Photoshop, you won't see your layers. We like to open up the layers channel. Maybe they just did that with photography. And now we begin. So it's Control J to duplicate your layer. We always work in multiple layers, as you see. And there's many ways we could fix this, and I'll show a few of those techniques. For example, the healing tool. We do a lot of work with the healing tool. And there's a few settings you want to look at. One is the size of your healing tool. And you can do that with Control bracket. How come I don't know how to use Photoshop? It's got the wrong keyboard. This is not my normal computer. How do you make the tool bigger and smaller in Photoshop? That's not a good look.
The bracket.
Oh, it's just the brackets with no buttons.
Yeah. Not that I do that a lot, but.
And to edit your tool size in Photoshop, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can just come up here, choose the size of it, or just on the keyboard you can just do bigger and smaller bracket. And we're constantly making that bigger and smaller, particularly if you're zooming in on a photo, which is Control++, and you're going to holding space to move. If you're going to edit a small area, usually going to use a smaller tool. And the other thing you need to know about your tools is there is a hardness setting. Usually we'll run this to the far left, but there may be a time where you want a harder edge, and so you will harden it up so you get a tighter line as you draw down the side of it. Like if you're going around a button or something, you might want to do that. Control Z, Control Z. If you are a long way out, so I'm going to tell you a lot of things that people won't teach you. So we've been doing this, I've been doing this for 25 years using Photoshop editing photos, so I'm going to try and teach you what we've learnt and how we do it. So if you're a long way out, your tool softness is going to be a lot larger, like it's going to be a lot softer edge. I should be showing you something like the clone tool than if you're closer in. So if you want finer detail, just zoom in closer and it will be a softer, a tighter, sharper edge, even without changing the sharpness. So I'll just show you that. So if I'm using the clone tool here, if I edited that out, sorry, I'll just go 100%. You see it's a very soft edge, whereas if we move in very close and make that a lot smaller, see the difference? I haven't changed the edge, the tool softness, I've just chosen how close we are, basically. And the size of the tool. So the size of the tool, and it makes sense, this tool is smaller, so it's a smaller feather. So so I'm just going to undo those workings. And if you're not sure where you've been, you just always toggle your layer off and on. We're always working with multiple layers. So I've made a little bit of a change that I didn't want to do, so I'll just get rid of that because we haven't started yet. I'm just showing you the healing tool. So the healing tool, we would just literally just go over the photo on our new layer and just take our time working around the damage. When you've got something like a button, you work towards it. So you work from the damaged area in, go out, in, and in, because if you just hit it, it might do a weird thing like that. And so you would go boop, 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 and just slowly get towards it. Really, I'll go quite close to this button. There's a couple of ways you could do this. We could just clone that out, but see, we've lost our shadow. So we can just keep healing, and sometimes it'll bring the shadow back. So it has there, almost brought it back to an acceptable level. Well, it has really. I've just worked my way from where it's good outwards. So I worked in, and then when I wanted to bring that out, I just healed out. I'm not doing anything but the healing tool. The other way we could repair photos, of course, is with the clone tool. And once upon a time, that's all we did was clone photos. So you go Alt, click to pick your source, and then obviously you can see it just copies on that angle. And so cloning's all about angles. So if there was a damaged line through a photo, you would Alt click and then move on that same plane, thinking about the patterns it's going to copy. So you might vertically clone, or you might vertically choose your source, or you might horizontally choose your source depending on the curtain patterns or the clothing or what have you. Now, we have AI nowadays, so it's very, very simple to do these, but you do need to know these basic cloning techniques or the AI will repeat the damage, basically. And so some of the most damaged photos, I will do all the face manually and just go in, and I'm just getting, nice and close, just getting the damage and letting the healing tool do the work. And then I will put the subject on a new layer, and I will AI out the background, create a whole new background, and recreate their clothes using AI. And so but you do need to know these techniques because the AI will always add extraneous artifacts. It's just what it does. It's something to do with copyright, I think. And so you always need to remove those extra weird artifacts that get it added in. And you should regularly save your file. So I'm just going to hit Control S. I'm going to save it. I'm not going to think too much about it. I'm just going to hit Control S every now and then, though we do have the files auto-saving every 5 minutes in our Photoshop. It's important that you do that. Ask me how I know. Okay, so we're just going through and just healing, and it's very important to us at the ThePhotoStore here that we never change who this person is. Even if you've got a really bad photo, you need it to be true to who they are. I think that's our job. Our job is not to recreate a different version of this person, it's to restore this at a archival level, like a museum really, so that it absolutely is true to this person, because I'm very aware that one day this probably will be the only copy of this photo in existence. Okay, so we've just gone through, done a little repair, and so once upon a time when we had to repair photos, we didn't have AI, so we did it all manually. And if this hat was missing, we would Google a photo of a hat or ask the customer to bring in another photo of a hat, and we would copy it on a new layer, scale it, skew it, transform it, and get it all to size. But nowadays, with AI, it's all pretty easy, right? And this little bit of fluff is actually in the photo, but I will edit it out, because I tell you, these guys would have been dressed very, very well. Like a lot of the penny photos you see, the street photos, everyone was absolutely in their Sunday best. Right, so I've done a little bit just to show you how we do that, and so essentially we just get close and we get cracking really, and just tick away at it, and so we can just toggle the damage on and off, and that's using nothing but the healing tool. And you do look at your file size that you're outputting. You might not have to be so close. If you're only doing a 6x4, you might only want to edit it at this level, or you'll just be doing it forever. Whereas I'm actually going to produce an 8x12 of this file, so it's quite a good size. Okay, so we've done a little bit of healing, and now I'm going to show you a little bit of cloning, though I do very little cloning nowadays. I do it, You do cloning really when the healing tool doesn't work. I'm sure we'll do a little bit. So I'm just going to show you how we would fix this crack with the clone tool. And so we're going to look at the angles. Here's the angle of his arm here. And so these two settings we change a lot on our cloning tool. And so if you're just doing hard repair, you're going 100-100, whereas if you are blending something in, you'd bring it down to sort of 80-80, 20-20 is how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer, Control J, because I'm going on to a different process. I'm going to go Alt click on this angle of his arm, and I'm going to move down on the same angle, therefore drawing the arm in that direction. And I can do all of the repair, and I'm letting go and going back down again, so that if I make a mistake, I don't have to Control Z and undo all of that work. See, I did this little bit here I don't like, so if I do Control Z, it only undoes that little bit. Whereas if you drag it all the way through and then Control Z, you lose all your work. Sometimes you might clone out a huge area. And so Alt click, I'm going on a different angle now. So now I'm going to get this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to Alt click on the fabric and then go up on the same angle so it draws it in. Sort of seems obvious when you say it, but it's all about angles, the cloning tool. Now I'm going Alt click, and you just keep hitting those angles. And now the chair, I'm going to do a vertical to match the shadow, and then I'll really want to get it accurate and hit the back of the chair spot on. And if you can just see that you can see what it's going to produce nowadays in Photoshop, it shows you that. And just Alt click and keep hitting your angles, and that's how we can manually with clone tool very quickly fix that. Okay, so now we're going to jump into AI, because that's probably enough to show you just a little bit of how I might fix that. But I'm just going to jump into a neural filter. Well, there's two ways we could do it. We could do a neural filter, or we could just select the areas and repair them. But I'm going to show you both. So we're going to go filter, neural filter. I use this a lot for repairing photos, I find. The first thing you want to do, this is just my laptop, so it's a little bit slow, is go to a new layer. Always go to a new layer. Every time, just layers, 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 and we blend our layers. I'll show you that in a minute. So we're going to turn on the photo restoration filter. We're going to turn off photo enhancement and enhance face. We could do this. We actually use other apps for enhancing faces. We use Remini. I do use a little bit of photo enhancement sometimes, but I find very soon on the slider it'll actually add blur to a photo, and obviously that's the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. The enhanced face is nice, but what we're going to do here is remove scratches. Not some of them, all of them. I've gone all the way to the right. And you might use that a little bit less, but because we're working in a layer, we're just going to crank that to the right hand side and let it do its thing. It's a little bit boring to watch, isn't it? And so we could talk about what we do though. I never change any of this, though you could. Because we work in layers, we can opaque this out. And so I would enhance the faces if it needed it, just a little bit I suppose, and the photo enhancement, but just use it with caution. What I might do, for example, is I might do a scratch reduction layer and then correct all the imperfections, because it's going to delete all his buttons, and I'll show you how to fix that. And then do another layer, do another neural filter, and then do the enhanced face filter. And so you're building up your layers. And then you might just select the face and put that onto the top and delete the rest of it. You just want his face, right? You can sort of invert you're keeping the best bits of every layer and every edit that you do. And we use a combination of layers to do that. And also we will blend our layers and blur them. And because we work quite fast, we do a lot of photos, a lot of our edits are $1, 1 minute. We will actually sort of do duplicate layers, blend the layer opacity, reduce the opacity, and then immediately merge it and then carry on the process because we're happy with it and we're confident we can move on. Whereas once upon a time with Photoshop, I never would have done that. I would have kept all my layers. I'll keep a certain amount of layers, but if I'm happy with what I've done with our processes, we're usually pretty confident we can just merge a couple of layers and move on, particularly with colorization and repairs and so forth. And we've always got the original layer. We never touch that original layer. You always have that in the background. Okay, so that's what it's done with the scratch reduction. Let's go in and have a look. It's on a new layer. And so that has done a certain amount of work. Obviously it's done a beautiful job. And so we'll just toggle that on and off with the layer view, and we can see what it's done. And so now what I'm going to do is fix all the bits that it shouldn't have deleted. Beta's getting pretty good at that. Okay, so the way we do that, I can see this button here has been deleted as I just reduce the opacity a little bit, just temporarily. We're going to use the delete tool. We don't often work in masks, though we do work with masks. And so I'm just going to, on this layer that I've got it currently at 54%, I'm going to delete that away, therefore bringing back the button. And we can turn it on and off. I noticed it just deleted this little bit of lighting from the chair. We want that little bit of highlight. Just a bit, adds a bit of contrast and depth. Very important you don't delete the faces. His number is very important, of course, and it has done a little bit of deleting there. So I'm just going to bring back that whole area. All the highlights on things will disappear. And remember, this was a full neural filter dust removal. It's quite intensive. Just make sure the photo stays sharp. It absolutely is sharp. Just toggle it on and off. A little bit of this button. So I'm just deleting it 100% here. You could do a 50-50 or a 20-20. But usually I will do 100% delete. I don't want to change who they are at all. So that's why, because you know, their grandchildren will be looking at this and they'll go, oh, that looks like my hands, you know, so you want it to be the same. Okay, so I'm happy we've repaired that without a lossless repair, let's call it. We'll just zoom out a little bit and just toggle it again. Just last double check. We want to be fussy. Take it back to 100% now. Yeah, that's pretty good, that neural filter, eh? Okay, so that's there. Couple of creases we want to keep. Well, we want to keep all the creases, to be honest. I usually wouldn't spend this long on it, but I'm just sort of making sure that I've got it right. Off and on. A little bit here. You see there's a little bit there. If I just go back, see it's a little bit blurry. I hope you can see it on the screen. So I turn this off and on. I said that wrong. That's off. And then this is the repair layer. So it has lost information in his face, and we don't want to do that. And so what I'm going to do now is fully delete this. Remember, we manually removed all the dust from his face, and so I'm going to just do a quick copy layer, Control J, and then turn off this layer just as a backup in case I make a muck up here. With a very large delete tool, I'm going to delete fully his face, because I want it to be completely perfect. So I'm just erasing, let go, and this is where you could use masks so you can see what you're doing. But once you sort of get the hang of it, you sort of know what you're doing, and I can show you what area is selected in a minute. What still remains of this layer, basically. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just need basically it's his eyes, right, and the badge there. And so what I'm going to do now is hold Control and click this area, and so I can see all the areas that we have deleted, because this is what remains of this layer. So when you hold Control and click this square here, it's going to select everything on that layer. Very handy to know that. And so I can see I've brought him back. I'm going to go Control D now, which is select nothing, and just make sure I've got this hat nice and crisp around the edges. I want nice sharp edges, his ears and so forth. Hold Control, click again. Control D, get all of it. And so that's that. And so if you weren't watching, I would just do that pretty quickly with a pretty big tool, and then I'd make the tool a lot smaller and just do the edges. So whenever we're working with tools, we'll use a very large tool, edit the bulk of it, and then you go smaller and smaller and closer and edit finer and finer. Okay, so what we have now, just showing you again, is that's our everywhere outside that selection has been repaired with a neural filter from there to there, there to there. I'm happy we've lost nothing that's important. Well, there's a little bit in the background I just noticed actually, so I'm just going to delete that. I mean, if you're doing your own photos at home, spend hours on it, you know, and have breaks and have something to eat. I have a lot of coffee. Okay, so that's that. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm actually going to merge that down, because as soon as you start working on layers with holes in them, it's a nightmare. You know, your colours won't go through and so forth. You can do it, but I'm going to merge that down. Control J, keeping in mind, Control J, that we have, oh, not Control J, sorry. You're supposed to tell me, Lan, it's not Control J at all. It's, I'll show you. Undo, undo. And so Control J is copy your layer. We're going to select a layer and then delete and merge down. I don't even think about my keys, I just do it. And if you're not sure of what your keys are, have a look. So it's layer, we're going to merge layers. So if you merge down as Control E, so that's to merge whatever selected layer you have down one layer. And you might select multiple layers and merge them, or you can go Shift Control E, flattens the whole picture. But we sort of don't do that. We save as working TIFF or Photoshop files, PSDs, and then we always output a JPEG to produce something. Just a tip, if you want to be perfect, don't produce JPEGs, produce PNGs. They are lossless. Okay, so we're just going to go Control E and merge that down. And so now if I go Control click, it's a solid layer. There is no loss to that photo, and that was using a neural filter. And so I'm going to go, we could save it as a new version, but because I've got an unedited background, I'm just going to hit Control S just to save it. Okay, so now we're going to move on to generative fill. I'm just going to pin up our, I thought I pinned that. Pin the bar position for the AI bar. So now we're going to use generative fill to do all the repairs. So what do? We do Control J. We're going to select all the areas that need repair in one fell swoop. And so I'm just going to use the marquee tool, just loosely select what you want to repair. I'm going to hold Shift and just keep adding to that selection. And you need to select all the damage. If you leave some damage, AI will add more damage in, if that makes sense. Like it's going to match whatever remains. And so I'll do a fairly large selection of anything that's not right. And so I'll just whip through to this whole photo. And you could select all the damage areas of his jacket now. You absolutely could do that. But I'm going to do that in a separate process, just to make sure I'm managing the repair process and not doing an AI repair without noticing what it produces, because it will produce some weird things. We need to fix his leg. When it did the damage, it didn't repair here correctly, but we will get to that. So we're not going to work on him at the moment, we're just going to work on the background. I probably shouldn't be selecting this area, or I should do this separately, because it's going to do weird things with the background, and I'd rather control that process and do it in a couple of steps. But it's pretty good. So I've selected those areas, that's all the damaged areas of the photo, and then we just hit generative fill, generate. That's it. And it's very, very fast, so it's a lot faster than a neural filter at removing damage. And in a way it's better, because if you select an eye that's missing, it will regenerate that eye, but you will push the generate many times when you're repairing bits of faces. So even though it saves you time, you can spend hours repairing, right? Okay, so now we're going to zoom in and make sure, hold space and drag it down. I'm using a tablet, by the way, a Wacom 3, quite a large tablet. I don't know, it's like 12 by 8 inches or something, the working area. Okay, so, and we define the bottom 2/3 of the tablet as the area that the pen works in. It makes it a lot easier, which I have not done on this laptop, but that's what we do. So you're going to get 3 options, of course, and we're going to toggle through them, the different AI engines, and once you've picked one that you like, turn it off and on, and have a look at what it's done. It's funny, I prefer that to the original, but it's not accurate. So all the repair is good, but I just don't like a couple of areas where it's changed his uniform. And so you select the right hand side of the generative fill, you put your tools on black and white, bring your black to the front, you get a paintbrush and you make it a little bit bigger. You can change your opacity on your paintbrush so you can feather out this, but I'm going to just turn it off and on to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring back his hat here. So I'm going to remove the AI that was done by painting this out with black. So I'm just going to paint that like that. And so that's more accurate repair of that. That's perfect. And then now we're going to go down to his collar and toggle that on and off. And so it's quite a bit different. See, so I'm just going to delete that whole area and we'll manually do this afterwards. And so now I'm going to zoom down into the corner. Oh, my video is finished, so I can stop that. While I'm working, I've always got videos converting, many different processes happening. Okay, so there's that there. Not necessarily accurate, but I probably don't mind it, if you know what I mean. But just for argument's sake, I'm going to fix that. That is fine. Okay, so now that I've got that right, rather than work in multiple layers and it be quite confusing, I'm actually going to merge that down. We will do dozens of layers without merging them, and you don't need to merge them. Maybe I won't merge them just now. So AI, you don't need to select the correct layer to AI. It will reference all the layers that are on. So if you find your AI is reproducing a layer lower down, just turn it off and rerun your AI and it won't reference the layer that's switched off. Okay, so now we're going to go in a little bit closer and just manually, or not manually, but a lot closely work on his outfit here. I'm very tempted just to healing tool that away, but I am going to use AI. We do use AI for most things. I'm going to stay well clear of these, of his number. I forget exactly what they call that number. Okay, so we're just going to do just a little repair area. I'll just grab this because I can't resist while I'm at it. A couple of little bits of dust, and we hit generative fill generate. Yes, you can type stuff in, and we do that, of course. You know, if you want to, you know, add a feather in someone's cap, you would type in feather. But AI, you don't need to tell it what to do if you're repairing damage. It's getting very good at it. There's a lot of us Photoshop users, I'm sure, around the world are training Photoshop to fix photos just by doing it. And so toggle that on and off. That is good. It's not perfect, but now is where I actually want to start using the healing tools and the cloning tool rather than keep AIing. I mean, I could just keep selecting that area, and that's those extra objects that AI always adds. It always is going to add extra objects. I'm not sure why it does that, it's just the way the engine works. Very good AI, of course. And so we'll do this with AI, but I would have done that with the healing tool by now. And so really you want to jump in with a healing tool and do that. You could use the paintbrush, of course, but you know, it's just a little bit much for the brain to think about, jumping around with masks and layers and solid and opacity and so forth. And so I'm going to get rid of that layer. I don't like it. I'm going to drag it to the rubbish bin. I'm going to merge these 3 layers. So hold shift from the top to the bottom one, or control click, control E, and then now I can just run in with the healing tool, boop, and that's just done that a lot quicker and a lot nicer. And now I'm going to use the clone tool. and I'm going to go sort of 80-80, go a little bit smaller, Alt, and I'm going to work in towards him, 80-80, so I'm almost painting it. So I always work from that background in, and then I will move the front object, for example the person in front of the background, I'll edit that afterwards, so it's on top, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to just see that 80% does nice. And then, so we're finished with the clone tool. I might just quickly clone this little bit of damage on this button while we're at it. And 2020 is lovely for doing this sort of thing, but we work up towards that fine detail. I'm working way closer than I probably need to be, but I'm just showing you how I would fix around here. So you just get very, very close, so you're just not going to affect those letters. You see he's actually, oh no, that's just a big solid letter. I thought there was movement in the photo, but no, it's quite a solid letter. I don't know if that means he's L42. Okay, so we're just going to do that, and so we might have to clone a little bit here, because you are not only restoring the original image, you're restoring what the people thought the original image was, if that makes sense. And so you will make it look better than it was in the first place, basically. Like, it's very important that they can read this, and so I'll make sure it does pop out. There you go. And so that's done. And just a little bit of healing tool. I'm too close, really. Amazing, the healing tool. Like I said, that's quite large, and just bonk and it gets rid of it. You don't have to be deadly accurate with it, but just get ready to Control Z and undo if it gets out of hand. Okay, so we're getting closer, and so that's all that damage repaired through there. He is fixed for the most part. We're just going to, I'm going to Control S because I've done a bit of work. And so I'm just going to quickly whip through these bits. And something I've been doing lately is I haven't been trying to remove everything. I leave a little bit, if you know what I mean. So a little bit of this damage, it's just not worth restoring it out. You don't want to end up with a plaster-sized photo. And yes, we can add texture. Yes, we can add grain. But I find with using the techniques we do nowadays, we actually don't need to add texture and grain like we used to. So this is a little bit damaged. I'm going to manually do it, though I absolutely could do that with AI. So I'm going to, with 80-80 on the clone tool, work our way in, work our way, whoops, undo, undo, undo. That's why I do little bits. Work towards the button. There's like a shadow in here. It's funny, sometimes you will edit something and what you've edited is a bit of dust that was on the film or something. You've made it perfect. Undo, undo. And so I just keep hitting our sources. Anyway, so that's the clone tool. Now we're going to just heal all these scratches out of it. Just really, really fast. Boom, 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 boom. Not clicking anything, I'm just whacking that healing tool over it. Yeah, I remember the healing tool when that first came out. Amazing. It's just a game changer. It's just the clone tool, really, using the area around. But it does make a big difference the way that you approach damage. And so you do get used to, so you see there's this line here, you approach it like that, and so that got that pretty good. But if I did it that way, it will do it somewhat different. And so you do work through your damage, like I was saying before. And so this is starting to get a bit messy. That's an exact example of where you will use AI. And so we're just going to select just the damage, nothing else, because if you did a great big selection, it will do silly things with its thumb and it'll get out of hand. So we want to be fairly close and just get what we want. But you definitely want more than that selection, though AI does run on the outside as well. So we're getting closer. We just need to do the little bit of damage up there, do an inspection of the background, and then the damage is done, really. Pretty easy photo, this one. Always read your job sheet to see what it says. It says record for TV. Okay, so now we're going to zoom out, repair his leg. That should be an easy one. That's just AI. Wouldn't even think about that one too much, just boop, 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 and it'll do the thing. AI will kind of fill the selection that you create. So if you want big hair on someone, you do a big selection. If you want finer hair, you do a smaller selection. I think everyone would pretty much know that by now. That's the first thing. The first thing I notice with AI is don't use too tight of a selection. So that's, rather than spend hours pushing the AI generative fill button, I'm just going to merge down this thumb repair layer. I'm just going to clone that, honestly. You can spend so long AIing, but when it is quicker just to do it. I mean, really, I should probably have the tool at 100, but I just hit it lots of times to paint it up to where it needs to be. AI is brilliant for fixing an edge where you've been working, like an edge around something. So if you wanted to fix this area where I've just deleted the shadow away, you would just select it and just hit generate, and it will just add a nice defined edge with just the right amount of softness, just the right amount of texture. I'll do that down the side of someone's face or something, just to finish your workings rather than getting in close with a soft tool and detailing the hair and so forth. Let AI generate the hair follicles. And so that's, done those options, but I'm going to do it manually. So there's a nice shadow that it's added, sort of. But I'm going to delete that. I use the burn tool and the dodge tool a lot. So hold down the saturation there and you've got burn, which is darker, and dodge, which is lighter. Now you always want to run this we run at about 10 usually. And then you just, less. And so we're just going to add shadow like that, and so I've just burnt it in, so obviously it's the burn tool. So there we go, so that's just added that in. Burn and dodge is very useful. Okay, so last little bits of repair, we're just going to select these bits here that are jumping out at us. Whoa. And you just get closer and closer to a repaired photo. And the last couple of steps we'll do is adjust the levels and the colours. And that's that. Cool photo, eh? It's actually an 8x10 we're producing, not an 8x12. So you spend a lot of your day just sitting there waiting for AI, to be honest. Not a great video to watch, but that's what it is. Okay, so now we're going to merge that down. I like to edit out all these bits of the edge of the photo, so we try and scan as much of the photo as possible, because that's all there is, right? I mean, these are literally over 100 years old. They're pretty important. And so I'm just using the healing tool, running up the edge of the photo where there's a bit of nothing, where there was no photo on the scanner. An area like this, you might just use a square selection or a marquee or something, just to make sure you've got it. But I do find the healing tool does a pretty good job of just drawing that outwards. Always start with a nice high-res file. So remember, this is a 1200 dpi reflective photo scan, which is quite high. But photos are continuous tone, meaning there's not actually dots in them, really. Not silver halide anyway, so you can go a long way. Control E, merge down. Okay, so now I'm going to size this file to the right size. Now that I've done the repair, because it's not going to copy damage outwards. So we get the crop tool, and we're going to do 8x10. And generative fill has a habit of not working outwards, so I don't want to crop any photo, so I like to evenly do it. I like to do it sensibly, so I put the person where they should be in the photo. So that's an 8x10 crop, and we change that to generative expand. We used to use content aware. Sometimes you still have to use content aware. So if you have black on the sides like this and your AI doesn't fill it in, content aware is still a handy tool to rough that in, and then you flatten it and you do AI to fix it. And so you see he's sitting, his feet are chopped off. We could absolutely easily add them in. But see what it does? It adds in a little bit of white on the sides of the photos. The AI always does that. There we go, got it. And so that's good. We've done that. I've merged that down because I don't need that working layer. And I've just run the healing tool up here to make sure I've got all of that. Right, so that's the basic edit done. Control S. You could save different versions. Now you've noticed I haven't done any levels on this photo. There's a couple of ways you can do your levels. You can go Control L, of course. So this is your black here, and so you'd bring that up. Really it should be on the black. But you use common sense as well. Every photo is a little bit different. But see how insipid it is? And so you bring in your blacks. And then usually you wouldn't do much here because see you're just going to immediately blow it out. And you've got your mid-range. You could do a little bit of punch. But what I quite often do is do a new layer. Control J, do the Control L, and get it where you want your levels and so forth. And yes, you can use histograms, but this does it for the most part. And then I might turn that off and on, and just to look at it. And now I'm going to change the opacity of that adjusted levels of this layer, because whatever you do, like get your edit where you want it, and then feather it back. Whether you're adding colour or adding saturation, you never add full saturation like you like it, add it and then take it back to 80%. Because it's okay for this photo to be a little bit light. It really is. And in fact, I think a photo should stay how it originally was. If it was a little bit underexposed, leave it a little bit underexposed. If it was a little bit dark, you know, a little bit light or whatever. Okay, so that's how we do this photo. If it had real blown out highlights, I would actually use the camera raw filter. And so that's I'll just merge this down. I'll just get rid of this working layer. So turn that off. Whoops. Turn that off. Turn that on. Merge it down. Control J. Make sure I've got a copy layer. So the camera raw filter has got more. Oh, I can fix the camera raw filter. This is my laptop, not my computer. So you've got to go in. Well, I could show you how to fix it. You go edit, into your preferences, into your is it going to be your image processing? But you might have to turn your Photoshop on and off, and you can change how it does this. More stable, more stable. Oh, I prefer the detailed results. Oh, we don't need camera raw filter. I might have to update my graphics processor, but usually you change your settings in there. But anyway, camera raw we use if your highlights are high and you want to reduce your highlights. The other way you can do it is image, edit, image, adjustment, shadows, highlights, and then you that's how you can bring your shadows up and reduce your highlights. But we don't need to do that on this photo, but there's 3 different ways you can do that. Okay, so now we're going to colorize this photo. They've asked for black and white. I'll just quickly talk about that. So black and white, we would add a black and white layer, right? I really like this sepia. So we do black and white, we do this sepia, love that. And then quite often I'll do that sepia actually over a color photo, and then I'll reduce this layer, therefore bringing the color back in. But we're not doing sepia today. We're going to do black and white in color. Does look better in sepia. Okay, so we are going to colorize it. Let's go. So filter, neural filter. Colorize. Oh, downloading from the cloud. So yeah, we use Photoshop just to rough in the colorization. It definitely is no stretch of the imagination anywhere near perfect. I'll show you how you can make some adjustments as you're creating it in the neural filter, but then we're going to manually colorize as well. So we used to manually colorize before AI came to Photoshop. Essentially, you selected an area of a photo, for example his jacket, and then you would create a new layer from that. You would make a selection, feather it by 2, make a new layer from that selection, just his jacket, right? And then you would hit the black and white layer, and then you'd tint it. And then you just repeat that process on every single section of a photo. Is how we used to colorize photos. So it's very everything you do in Photoshop is like how they used to edit photos in the old days, like dodge and burn, hand tinting photos. So we're still doing it the same. Okay, so we have run the colorize on this. Obviously, this chap's not wearing blue. And so something you can do is you can click an area and define it. I have opened. Oh, we can define the hex here actually, because I have downloaded the correct color, just so we have it for reference. That's here. If you're doing an AI process, it won't actually open up until in Photoshop until you've finished the AI process. So I think I can drag that to there, but it won't open until afterwards. But what you can do is you can define a color, and I could have gone and got the hex code first by picking it with a color picker. You can tap on an area, define the color here, like we just did, and then you can keep tapping on the photo, making sure it colors in all of those colors, you see. And then you'd zoom in on the hat and so forth. Quite often we just manually do a lot of this. Really you just want a hint of colour in the thing. So let's go new layer, okay. Straight away I always do Control J, a new layer. Let's open that photo that we got for reference of the correct khaki colour for World War I. It really looks very similar to World War II to me. We can select the colour tool by clicking on the square here, and then click on this, and remember if you zoom in there's many different shades of this, so keep watching here and get it how you kind of like it. I suppose it's a lot browner than green, but that is an Anzac coat. And so now we've got that colour, we can colorize this in using the colour replace tool. Click and hold and you got the colour replacement tool. And so you want it pretty large to begin with, and so essentially I'm just going to colour that in. And what I'll probably do is, I'm going to pause in a minute because I'm going to have a coffee. I'm going to go and delete the buttons afterwards. We use a very large tool. We make it a lot smaller. We do the edges, though it's pretty good at not going over the edges somewhat. And then we'll delete what we don't want and then merge it down. And so I'm just going to pause the video because I'm getting a bit croaky. Have a coffee. I'll be back. Okay, we're back. So we're back into Photoshop and we're going to finish this photo now. And so yeah, normally we'd just colour this in and go in and delete the button. So let's do that. So we're just going to quickly colour this in. So pretty large tool to begin with. And you can tell if you've got the wrong colour, because as you colorize, say if he was red and you're trying to hit it with yellow or something, it'll get sort of dots, and then you know you've picked the wrong colour. So don't worry about getting too close to the edges now. We're going to do that with a smaller tool afterwards. And we've got this layer duplicated below, so we can delete down and bring back the hand if we need to. Also, if you go over the thumb a little bit, for example, you can you just keep going Alt and keep picking your your colour source, and you'll just keep working over it. And do it as you're going too. So if I see this finger needs doing, I'll go Alt, click, and I'll fix that finger now. And this one here and here. And then back Alt, click, and then just carry on. You know, do it do it when you notice it, so you don't forget it basically. Keep working around. I went over his hand a little bit there, but it actually doesn't matter because it's such a similar tone, but I could hit it if I was worried about it. I just re-picked it. And your shadows can go a little bit weird. They go a little bit darker, like a leg that's in shadow will go quite a dark colour. So what we would do there is just do that process on a separate layer, colorize it in, and then reduce the opacity on that layer, therefore blending it down. I find that works very well. And so that's how I'll fix hair colour quite often, is I will colorize say the hair should be a little bit redder. Well, I will do quite an orangey sort of layer, but a bit of a red layer on a new layer above, and then I'll adjust the hair, and then I'll reduce the opacity, therefore adding a bit of colour to the bottom layer. You know, I use the layer blend a lot rather than worrying about blending it another way. Just blend your entire layer and just use that one area. You can see here you've got a bit of colour bleed into the background, so I'm going to go Alt click, grab that while I notice it and edit it out, and you can go right over this and with black and it will fix it. I've noticed this here, and maybe that should be colorized in, but we'll do that as a separate process. Click there. See, it looked a little bit weird around his hands here, so I will colorize all the way in. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to not catch the eye, if you know what I mean. Alt click, get that finger a little bit better, so we do the front object last. And so that's that hand looking pretty good, and there's a fine line between whether the front should be coloured correctly or the background. And so I can run the skin tone right over the edge, and it actually, the AI knows not to colour too far over, so that's getting pretty good. And let's jump back to a bigger tool, get in the bulk of it, and then go a lot smaller and finish. I'll fix that in a minute. I'll fix all of the hand in a minute, but I'm just going to colorize this in quickly. And so you notice I'm doing it in little bits, so I can undo it if I need to, rather than doing it all at once, because otherwise you'll go over the edge, you won't like it, and you'll have to undo it. But I'll try not to move out of the screen, otherwise you will leave those bits behind. And you need to sort of just use a bit of common sense. Whoops, forgot to push Alt. A bit of common sense, of course, as you go. See, I accidentally picked a pink dot within all the lighter, within all the lighter bits. I got a dark bit. There you go, and that's that, looking lovely. And then I'll just hit this while I notice it. There's a couple little spots, okay, and then so we Alt click, get the black, because I could use black or white here, and it will go over these grey areas exactly the same. It won't make any difference if it's black or white. It's just a lack of colour, right? It's all an illusion. You're just trying to distract the eye from. You're just trying to hide anything that stands out as not right, basically. And so for the chair, if I wanted to make this chair look like a nice mahogany or oak or something, I would do that one process on a new layer. I would add quite a heavy reddy sort of crimsony colour to it, and then I would blend that in so it didn't jump out so much. Okay, that's a little bit weird looking, so now I'm going to just make sure I've got that right. Something like that. And remember, no one's going to be looking at it this close, just you and I, whereas once it's in the frame, they will just look at the whole picture. And so the most important thing is it's not too colourful. And so I show you a couple of tricks, but basically it is just reduce your saturation a little bit on the whole thing once you're finished. Like just add a black and white layer below and just reduce the opacity on this layer to bring the black and white through. Or my favourite is, particularly if the photo's a bit blown out, quite often photos are a little bit too bright in the highlights, I'll add a sepia layer above, and then I'll reduce the opacity on that top sepia layer, therefore bringing the bottom layer in. And see, I've coloured in all the buttons. I don't like that. We will fix that. Like, I'm just going to go over all this for now, and then I'll bring the highlights through, or the can be silver, bronzy, gold, different colours of buttons that they're wearing in uniform. So we're getting close. It does seem to take a while, I suppose, but photo editing does. And we do this quite cheaply, so we do this for $30 in our store for one person, and that might sound crazy for how much work you're seeing me doing, but if I wasn't talking about it, I'd go a lot quicker probably. But we want to share what we do here. And I don't need to actually zoom in close to see what I'm doing, because the AI knows the logic of the tool. The color replace tool does kind of know. And that's it. We just do one little zip around the edge to make sure we've got all this coat correct. I suppose his trousers actually are the same color, really. So let's just hit those. Oh, held down the button for too long. That coloured in quite nicely due to the colour. And if this colour isn't quite right, we can correct it. But I think it's fairly close. And again, we're just going to go right over the top of all this, and we'll delete this layer to bring that back. But I'll show you how you can edit all of the colour tone a little bit, very simply. And the way we're going to do it is by using the colour, what's it called? I'll show you in a minute. We're going to adjust the colour and select the colour replace, I think it's called. Another trick I've learned is you can just use the paint tool. So you'd create a new layer and you would absolutely just paint this in with the paint tool, just 100%. And it might sound a bit rough, but then we will just blend that layer down with the opacity, therefore blending it in. You can also do that with the so yeah, you can blend the layer in, or you can make the layer a color layer only, which is here somewhere. Where's color? Down here. You make it just a color layer. And so that all that's doing is, if you do any editing on this, it won't show. It's just going to be color only. But I'm going to undo the fact that we made that a normal layer to a color layer, but quite handy changing your layer styles. And there's many different tricks. So what we're going to do is we're going to share a whole lot of photos, and you'll see these different techniques come through. With the reflection on these, quite cool. On how we do it, and always you've got to fix the lips, of course, but we're just doing the uniform for now. Okay, now we're going to delete through and bring back the buttons. We're just going to use the eraser. Oh, see, it's a bit green underneath, eh? But that's okay, we can fix that. So we're just going to bring back the buttons. So we're just deleting this layer 100%. There's other ways you could do this. You could use the color replace tool and color it in. And now I'm going to go much closer.
I've just come across it again because I've been using my mobile as you do to post it. I just want to know whether it's likely to take better photos than my mobile phone.
It's got the zoom. Oh, hello. It's got, so it's good for holidays, Natalie, you know, because you've got that big zoom, you can bring up the objects in the distance. I'll just pause this video. Okay, we're back. We just got an old camera going, quite neat. She's very excited to get that working. Okay, back to the colour replace tool. There's just a little bit missing there. And we'll do the chin afterwards. I'm probably too close to worry. You don't need to edit them this close, but just while I see it, I'll do it. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to fix the greenness on the buttons and the lapel. So remember, we have got this layer above, and we've deleted holes in the layer. Okay, I'm way too close here. Hard not to when you see it though, right? Okay, so now we're going to pick the next layer down, And we can just going to do some edits on this layer. So lots you can do hue saturation, doesn't really matter what you do, you're just trying to make those, there we go. I just drag the hue to the left. I could have done that by black and whiting that layer. That would have worked fine as well. See? It's funny the effect that black and white does, and we could even add some, reduce the opacity of that black and white layer. So there's a little bit of colour in it. I don't like the colour of this button, and so we would colour replace from here to here, just to give that a bit more definition. There we go. So we've got all the buttons separated, and now let's merge all these layers. Oh, I was going to show you how to change the hue of this if you weren't happy with it, because my brain says that should be greener, though if we look at our reference photo, yes, it is a bit greener, see? And so I'm going to use the image adjust color replacement, replace color it's called. And so we pick the color, we choose how much of that color we've chosen, right? And then we can just adjust the hue of it. Actually, it can go out of hand very quickly. And so you can lose your levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this layer. I'm going to do the color balance on the whole photo. Off, on, a little bit closer to greener. You can just adjust different, you can just adjust your greens. We don't usually do that, but you can. Color balance. Yeah, I'm not liking, whoops, that I'm losing, just dragging that layer into the rubbish bin, that I'm losing the definition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that just a color layer. Off, on. So there we go. So I'm not losing all the levels. I've just adjusted the color of it. Control J. Now, whoops, not Control J, Control E. Okay, to merge down. I'm now going to copy this layer. I'm going to go Shift Control B to auto color. I do that quite a lot. I'm not going to do that on this instance. I would do Shift Control B on a new layer, which is auto color, and then I would hugely reduce that down to just add a little bit of definition. See, I don't hate that. And so we're going to run with that, merge down. It was only at a very low percentage. It still needs to be a little bit more green. So we're going to copy that layer again. Image, adjust, replace color. Obviously it would have been better, and so I found what's working. Now I just do that just a little bit. Whoops. Control A, 4. Control A, 4. And so undo, redo. And so I'm happy with that. It's just got just a hint of green that we want, and I haven't adjusted the skin tone at all. We've just adjusted this, and that's a normal layer. Okay, so now we're going to go in and make sure his face is good. We're going to work this on Control J. I just created a new layer, and so we're going to use the color replace tool. First I'll show you how to fix his lips. So guys' lips are always too pink, so I'm going to get the skin tone. I'm going to work around the lips, and you've got to work from close to where you want it. So there's a bit pinker here, so I'll copy that, and I'll just try and copy similar. So first thing I do is remove all the bleed of the colour in the wrong direction, and this doesn't have to be perfect, and then I'll show you quite a weird effect. And so I've done that. Now I'm going to just pick skin tone. I'm actually going to merge, I'm going to Control J again, sorry, copy this layer. I'm going to hold Alt, click on just a skin tone. I'm going to go completely colour the lips in and get rid of the colour. And now I'm going to reduce the opacity of that till it's just right. There we go. So off, on. It's subtle, that's what we want is subtle. Merge your opaque layer, because it's very annoying working with opaque layers. Okay, so now we've done this, the lips how we want it. We're just going to colour in the rest of his face where we need it. And so you can see you've got this effect where it's too strong, but we're going to keep colouring and then we're going to merge it. Get any bits that are missed. Photoshop will always miss these little bits, not always, but quite often. I'm going to colour in the hair as well. And it's just adding some colour that we're going to again reduce the opacity. Okay, so that's good. Add a little bit of colour in his cheeks. Don't worry about this, we're going to merge it out. You shall see. So this is kind of like adding makeup or something, I suppose. So anywhere that we need to add it, and that looks a little bit yellower, and it is a little bit yellower than I'd like. But now I'm just going to reduce the opacity to blend that out. There we go. So off, on. It's subtle, but I've added some colour, and so now we merge that down. I'm going to fix all of his hat now. So I just want this to be black. Completely black. I want it to really pop, and I go right over this with black as well. You do want some blacks in your photos to highlight the colour. And then there's a bit missing here, so I've gone Alt and click, and now I'm going to, all the colours are a little bit weird underneath here, so I go Alt click and I just get that. It's a bit yellow here, so pick some pink. And do just keep doing duplicate layers and merging them down. You'll find it a lot easier. A little bit more work under there. And that's pretty close. And then something I like to do to finish, Control J, is quite often I'll 100% desaturate the eyes. Like 100%. Even though there is some colour in there, the human eye will trick you into thinking that they're in colour. But that is fully black and white. So there you go. So that really pops. And the customer will tell you if they're brown eyes. Okay, so now we're going to, his hair's still a little bit green actually. Whoops. And so we're just going to colour in his hair a little bit browner. There's brown already selected, so Control J, brown is here. Could be a slightly darker brown. Just click on there to pick your colour source. That's that bit of glass with the tape around it. Okay, and so then we're going to merge that layer down. Reduce the opacity. There we go. See, we've got his brown hair correct. So off, on, merge it down. Okay, so bit of an illusion on that. I think I'm going to desaturate that a little bit. There's many ways you could do this, and it doesn't really matter how you do it. So it's just the desaturation tool to remove a lot of the colour out. That's that bit of glass, Marty. The old WW1 photo. Yeah. And stop. Okay, so now what we're going to do is do the chair. And I think we're just going to do it black. So, book, colour replace tool. Because we could do it mahogany, we're just not going to. And every single photo we do, we're going to do a colour balance at the end. Therefore, I think it's really important that you add that consistent colour over the whole photo to hide the fact that it's been colorized, if you know what I mean. So rather than just having bright colours like crayons and pastels and paints everywhere, you will, I'm just healing a couple of spots that I notice, you will have a hue over everything. We basically add yellow and red to every photo. Not every photo, but pretty much every photo, just because we code it. And yellow adds a little bit of brightness to the photo, we find. Okay, so we can actually just, whoopsie daisies, that's the healing tool. Back to the colour replace tool. And you can just get rid of all the colour bleed. And so that photo is actually just about done. I could do a little bit of repair on the legs just with the healing tool. We could also use the clone tool, might be better. And so we've got the clone tool, go to 100, not 80. And you pick your source. I'm going to build this leg upwards. Alt click. Build it straight up. And you've got to let go, otherwise it'll repeat the same damage and patterns and remove anything that's repetitive. Alt click, alt click, alt click. Okay, there's the leg. Whole lot of colour here we want to get rid of. Control S to save. And we just remove all that colour in bulk. And it's quite nice to do some quite large areas of colour removal and adding colour. So I might, for example, use the selection tool here, go like this, and I might just colorize in there on a new layer. I could show you, and so I'll show you old-fashioned colorization. So I'm going to Control J, put that on a new layer, that selection. So I've just got that floor area. We're going to go black and white. This is how we used to colorize back in the day. Whoops. Hold Control and click there, so you only add the effect to that area. Black and white tint it, like that. Right, and then you could choose your tint, change how it is, whatever, and merge that down. And then I can zoom in and I can just delete what I don't want, because I want his legs on top, right? Many ways you could do that. There you go. So that's how we can very quickly do that, and instead of worrying about that, the fact that it's got some mistakes there, we're just going to merge it down, and then we're going to use the colour replace tool. And so that's once upon a time how we did it. Oh, that's the chair there, sorry. There you go. So we hand tinted that area, and we could build the whole background like that. But it's not about the background. Okay, so now we're going to add hue to the whole thing, and we're going to do that with colour balance. We want to see most of the photo on the screen. Add red, add yellow, and so yellow really brightens it, see? And so you want to be a little bit careful. So get it where you want it and then ease it back. Sometimes you don't add red, you might add a little bit of cyan. But the important thing is we're adding a cast of one description or of another over the whole photo. So off, on. So I do like it, but I'm going to reduce that by half. Off, on, more. And merge that down. And so there we go. So that's our colorized photo ready to go. I'll just show you how we would do a sepia blend on that. Sepia on a whole new layer, then pick. What happens is you hold your mouse over these, it shows you those, so just stop holding your mouse over it. Click on the repair sepia layer. Looks quite nice with the contrast, eh? It adds quite nice contrast to them. We're going to just reduce that. So off, on. You see what I mean with the sepia blend? 20% off, on. 10%. This customer actually requested to not lose any highlights and shadows, which is quite a nice request. So sepia off, sepia on, and so that has done a very nice job of just toning that out. So that's what we're going for, is a nice realistic looking colour, and I think we've done that. We certainly could select the layer with the colour if it was still too much, and we could just lower the saturation a little bit. You know, but it's whatever jumps out at you. That chair looks a bit green to me now, actually. Oh, we're doing very, very little effect to it now. What colour is that chair? Oh no, it's just got no colour at all, actually. What we could do, just because that chair is bugging me, is I could show you how to fix that. So let's merge all these layers. We're happy with them. It's a fairly extreme call though, so I'm going to copy that layer first. Now I'm going to merge all those layers, just in case it was too much. Control J, not Control J, Control Z, Control E to merge the layers. So off, on, and you can see it is adding a little bit of shadow there, but that's okay. I think I'm going to blend that a little bit. Control E, Control J, and I'll just pause that. That's a World War I of your father. That's a beauty, isn't it, Simon? Very sympathetic. You did good. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Simon. Okay, so we're just finishing off. Just this chair is bugging me here, and so we do need to colorise that. And so we're just going to merge that down, so at least we have a 100% layer. Okay, so let's just quickly colorise the chair. We can do it many ways. We could desaturate it, or we could just use the colour tool. You see it did need it, right? It was just popping out as green. Because we've added a little bit of colour to the photo, sometimes you overrule some of your work from previously, and just whatever looks wrong in the photo, fix that, essentially. Okay, so that's it there. We've just desaturated. And we could tint the background, but it's not really about the background. But if we did want to do that, we would just, pick a colour, could be green, right? And then we would copy that layer. We would colorise it in, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Look out, you could do it just as crazy as this. And then you just blend that opacity down, therefore making it a pastel. See how easy that is? And then we might pick that again, do a sympathetic colour to his coat, for example, and keep going. You need to merge that down, Control J, and just keep working it out. But it's all about the layer blends, particularly when you're fixing here, different things like that. And this is looking a little bit rough what I'm doing, but what I'm showing you essentially is how easy it is to colorise in a background in a sympathetic way that is quite simple to how the pastel guys would have done it when they were hand tinting photos with watercolours. And that work that we've done, we're going to merge that down, but we're going to absolutely just reduce that. I was just sort of showing you what we could do. We're not going to make that a feature of the photo by any stretch of the imagination. There we go, we've faded that out. And there he is. So that is Thomas Perry, edited and restored in colour, hopefully in a sympathetic style. It looks fairly realistic, like he was shot in colour. We're going to print that on our photo lab, put an 8x10 and put it in this frame, which is a New Zealand made frame, and that should look really good. So thanks for coming along, and we'll show you some more restorations soon.